2020 virtual annual meeting. I'm Dana Tippin Cutler.
And I'm Keith Cutler. We're Missouri lawyers who live and practice in Kansas City, which was supposed to be home to this year's annual meeting. Dana was actually Missouri Bar President when the annual meeting was last here in 2017.
Since our city is unable to host you in person this year, we volunteered to be your guides for this virtual event. To borrow a phrase from past President Ray Williams, this is kind of a big darn deal, as it's the first time in the Missouri Bar's 76-year history that we brought you the special recognitions, passing of the gavel, Chief Justice's speech,
and don't forget, a great speaker series with national experts on timely topics.
That's right. This is the first time we brought you all of this all online.
But before we dive into our traditional elements of the annual meeting, 2019-2020 Missouri Bar President Tom Bender helps remind us of some of the special moments of past annual meetings, and more importantly, how we all can move forward together. Tom?
Hi, my name's Tom Bender, and welcome to the 2020 virtual annual meeting of the Missouri Bar. I found that lawyers generally have pretty good imaginations. We have to be creative to find solutions to some of the difficult factual situations and nuances in the law and the like, so I ask you today to use your imaginations to picture yourself in beautiful Kansas City. It's a gorgeous day. People are down at the plaza eating lunch outside, and if you're using your imaginations, they're able to eat lunch inside too. Shopping bags are at their feet, fountains flowing everywhere. Some are touring one of our world-renowned museums, others are at the zoo or Worlds of Fun. Downtown, people are getting on the Kansas City streetcar from Union Station through the Crossroads, Power and Light District. Some are touring the World War I Museum or Steamship Arabia. All are getting ready to get barbecue tonight on the way out to watch the soon-to-be 2020 World Series champions, the Kansas City Royals. Okay, I get it. Remember, I ask you to use your imagination. Inside, we're all gathered together for lunch. There's a hum in the room. Some catch up as old friends do, others start new friendships. No one has masks on because, in our imagination, there is no virus. The lunch is about to begin. It's a glorious day to be alive. I wish all this were true. One of the joys of being a lawyer is the opportunity to spend time around other lawyers. And the annual meeting's the main time that I get to see so many of my friends and you yours. I miss that. I also miss and can only imagine all the handshakes, the hugs, the closeness that can't be shared at this virtual meeting. But it's still a glorious day to be alive, and I thank all of you for sharing this virtual time together. Because today we focus not on what's been taken from us, but on the richness of what still remains. These times have taught us how important it is that we work together to address common challenges. How much better we are, the profession is, the world is, if we reunite to fight common diseases, whether health diseases or the more incipient diseases that attack the fabric of our society and our democracy. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you'll stay with the rest of the conference to hear our world-renowned speakers. So now sit back, enjoy your lunch. Mine's Kansas City Barbecue.
We are undoubtedly living in unprecedented times, which has spurred us to overcome many new issues impacting our lives, our communities, and our profession.
While as lawyers, we have learned to adjust to new methods of serving our clients, learning, and networking with each other remotely, our bar has continued to work to meet our needs and those of Missouri citizens.
Missouri Bar President Tom Bender, our officers, and our Board of Governors have been true leaders at every turn this year. But you may not have heard of the person who's been coordinating all these efforts day to day.
That's because the Missouri Bar's new executive director, Mr. Epps, joined our team this spring, right at the time when stay-at-home orders were spreading across our state. Since she has not had the opportunity to travel the state, to meet Missouri Bar members in person, we thought we'd introduce her to you.
Yeah, Cutler. Let me go call Misha right now.
Hello?
Hey, Chick.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. I haven't really had a chance to catch up with you since you became the Missouri Bar Executive Director. So
Yes.
I'm glad you're taking a few minutes to catch up with me and let me see how you're doing.
Well, it's good
Uh,
to see you. Thanks.
so let me think. You started April 1st, is that right?
That's correct.
All right. So you start your new position in the middle of a global pandemic. What has that been like for you? What have you been doing with the bar?
Really, we've been focused on safety and providing resources to lawyers to help them adapt to servicing clients. So, whether that's been working with the COVID-19 response task force on various recommendations, or we've taken all of our Missouri Bar meetings to a virtual platform as opposed to in-person meetings. And we've also been working on ways to address the increased need for legal services for people who have lost their jobs or may not have resources through Missouri Free Legal Answers. So there's been a lot certainly going on.
Yeah, I mean, what a time to be taking over an organization and knowing that you still have other stuff you've got to do. What are the other things you've been working on? I know that you've been kind of the pandemic, but I'm sure there are other things you've had to do as well. What does that look like?
Yeah, we actually have focused on a number of other initiatives. For example, lawyer wellness and well-being. We're aware of all the added stress and isolation that COVID-19 can cause for all of us, and so we've launched a new online community called Lawyers Living Well, and MOLAP has also expanded its services, and we've been focused on some of the diversity and inclusion initiatives. So, the bar is interested in increasing diversity and fostering inclusion. So we are continuing programs like the Leadership Academy, of which you're well aware as one of the co-founders of that effort. It's in its 20th year, and so we're focused on providing leadership training and increasing participation from lawyers all across the state. And also in that vein, Missouri Bar President Tom Bender just appointed a special committee on increasing the retention, promotion, and advancement of lawyers of color across the state. So there is no dearth of opportunities for people to get involved in issues to tackle.
So in spite of the pandemic and all the work that you're doing on that, you're doing all these other efforts and projects as well to keep the bar moving.
Correct.
So here's the question that me and Mr. Cutler have.
Okay.
You're a partner in a large firm. You've been president of JCPA, Jackson County Bar Association. You headed up the board for legal aid here in Kansas City. How has all of that experience played out in this new role?
A lot of the skills developed from my 20 plus years of private practice have translated very well to the bar environment. So whether it's listening to and addressing client concerns instead of the paid clients of private practice, it's the members of the Missouri Bar. So addressing the needs of our members and the needs of the community, and how do we best provide services that meet those needs, and also looking at how do we provide civic education and provide pro bono service to those parts of our population that need legal services, and those I've been involved in those efforts on a volunteer basis in my prior career, and so those things dovetail nicely with the strategic goals and direction of the Missouri Bar. So it's been a nice melding of the things about which I've been passionate for a very long time, dedication to the law and dedication to community service and leadership, and those are all things in line with what the Missouri Bar does and is trying to do to benefit lawyers across the state.
Well, you know what I find interesting is that typically, you would have had an opportunity to be at some of these CLEs and some of the larger bar functions like solo and small firm or family law. And like you said, they've been all moved online. So people have not had an opportunity to get to know you personally. Like, I've known you for a number of years, but how are you getting to know on a personal level all of these folks that are members of the bar?
Well, I've had the benefit of being able to do Zoom calls like this with individuals, or calls and emails. And if people have a Zoom meeting happening with their local or specialty bar, I'm happy to participate in those. Or if they want to set one up with me and be able to visit and share their concerns, I'm open to listen. So feel free to do so.
So they can just reach out and call you.
Exactly.
Now, I guess, it's been a really exciting year for you, and you've been doing all of these various things and getting your feet wet. What is the thing that has surprised you most about this year thus far, aside from the pandemic? What has been the things like, oh, this is a cool part of my job?
I've been really excited to work with the volunteer leadership of the bar and our incredible bar staff. We really have been blessed with some very talented individuals, and they've certainly stepped up to the plate in providing innovative ways for us to provide relevant and helpful resources to our members and the community. So that has probably been one of the greatest surprises and blessings for my transition to the bar.
Well, look, Mr. Cutler is saying I've got to go and talk to the senior counselor, so I'm getting ready to go do that. It has been so much fun catching up with you, and look forward to seeing you in real life, in real person, sooner than later.
It has been great to talk with you, and I look forward to that. I'm gonna have to road trip to Kansas City.
There you go.
Okay.
Take care, friend.
Bye-bye.
It is now time for one of the traditional highlights of every annual meeting, the recognition of members of the Missouri Bar who have achieved the status of senior counselor. In order to be recognized for this honor, members must have been in practice for at least 50 years or have reached the age of 75.
This year, we honor more than 212 members who have reached this significant milestone in their service to the profession. Speaking on behalf of those members is Vincent Mike Igo. Mike is a managing shareholder and director at Withers, Brandt, Igo, and Mullinex PC in Liberty, Missouri, and is a former member of the Missouri Bar Board of Governors.
As we cannot ask all of this year's senior counselors to join us in person to be recognized, we have listed their names for you, which you will see scrolling on the screen during Mike's remarks. Take it away, Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Igo. I practice law in Liberty, Missouri. I'm a senior counselor now, I've been told. I'd like to thank President Bender and the bar for allowing me to make a few remarks on behalf of the senior counselors and our new senior counselors. Well, who are the senior counselors? We're people who this year will be 75 years of age or have practiced 50 years. So September 12th was my 48th anniversary, so I'll give away my age a little bit. I went to UMKC Law School, was an assistant attorney general with Jack Danforth for a couple of years, and went to Liberty to practice law and have been there since 1974. I've had a lot of great mentors, partners. Tom wanted me to talk about changes in the practice in the last 50 years. So I like demonstrative exhibits, and here's the demonstrative exhibit. This cell phone. Can you imagine the power of it? Can you imagine what it can do compared to what we did 25, 35, 45 years ago? My God, we used carbon paper and triplicate to do pleadings and letters. Dictaphones came into vogue. I had a partner one time that wouldn't go in his office because we put a dictaphone in it. And He wouldn't go until Gladys, his assistant, got there to take his dictation. We have a lot of turnaround time now with contracts and documents. We used to have a couple of days after you'd send out a contract. Now, you get it back 45 minutes later. It's red, blue, green, marked up, Technicolor. We didn't have as much time to take things apart, and I think that may have been a little better. But with this, we have information at our fingertips, law libraries versus what we can do with this or the computer. You want the Missouri Revised Statutes? Google it. You want to use Westlaw or one of the services to do all your legal research? You can do it online. It's so much simpler, and it's also done away with a whole lot of books we used to use. Now, another thing that we do with this little instrument is the email. You know, we used to telephone people a lot. I talked to lots of people. Lawyers talk to each other a tremendous amount, and we didn't just talk about cases. Eventually, we got to know each other, and we'd talk about the Royals, the Chiefs, our kids, high school graduations. We don't have that with email. You're very direct, you know, and you send stuff. And, you know, one of the biggest problems with the email is someone put a send button on it. And, you know, sometimes you send things on email that maybe you wish you didn't, or something you thought was a joke, when it's read on the other end, doesn't appear to be a joke. Anyhow, that's been a little bit of a problem, but I think by and large, we're overcoming it slowly. You know, we got to know each other. Collegiality was easier. And like most of the senior counselors, I've been blessed with a chance to practice law for a living. Hell, I've had a lifetime of work with a lot of bright, funny, talented people in this profession. A lot of my practice today is mediating, and I see a lot of younger attorneys, and you know, at my age, who isn't? But what I see gives me great hope for the profession going forward. Civility still seems to be the norm. There are a lot of good people practicing law out there. You know, I tell people I haven't worked since 1972. I get to do what I love. Every day's different people, different stories, issues, problems. I never thought I was going to a job. You know, along the way you get to help people, and you know, sometimes you even get paid for it. There's some basic themes to what we do. We help hold the fabric of society together. We protect the rule of law, which today seems more important than ever. You know, we're problem solvers. People think we might be problem makers. We're problem solvers. And even though the way we do things and may be different, and our skills are different, and our ages and times are different, the manner in which we practice our profession is different, and years have passed before us, there's still several things that we hold true. Honesty, integrity, civility. A person's word and repute are paramount. We should be proud of our profession. Hopefully in the future, senior counselors who may be sitting out there who are 40 or 50 will be able to say the same things in 25 or 35 years from now. So on behalf of all the senior counselors, thanks, and have a great ride.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you to all of this year's class of senior counselors for your wonderful service to the profession and, more importantly, to the people of Missouri. You know, Cutler, I really love this part where we acknowledge the senior counselors. And of course, I can't help but reminisce about when my dad and Doreen Dodson spoke during my year. I really loved it. And I love the advice that our senior counselors give attorneys, young, middle-aged, and, well, you know, somewhere in between. Not so young, yeah.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, we've asked this year's senior counselors to share their advice for lawyers so that we can share it with you. You'll find there are helpful insights on the Missouri Bar's social media channels, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, using the hashtag #MoSeniorCounselors.
Next, we would like to introduce our good friend, 2019-2020 Missouri Bar President, Tom Bender, to announce this year's recipients of the President's Award.
It's my honor to recognize two of our lawyers who have given so much of their time to benefit the public, our members, and our profession. The first recipient is Judge Lisa Van Amberg. When the ugly reach of the COVID-19 virus was revealed and the courts had to restrict access, we established a COVID-19 response task force to see what we could do to make sure that attorneys and the public have access to the legal processes they needed. I asked Judges Jim Welsh and Van Amberg to co-chair this task force, along with several lawyers from various practice areas and parts of the state. I asked them to do so at a time when their own lives and for the most part their own practices were upside down, but each said yes. Immediately facing us was the need for a change to the notarization process. Those in nursing homes and hospitals had restricted access, but yet required remote notarizations. We worked with the Secretary of State's office to help make necessary changes, and addressed what we could to relax procedural rules, promoting remote proceedings, depositions, subpoenas, and addressing endless other problems. All the task force members worked hard, but one person stood out in her dedication. When I called her to help, Judge Van Amberg asked how much time would it take. My estimate was about 1,000 hours low, but she still talks to me anyway, and her service was unparalleled. It's my privilege, on behalf of the Missouri Bar, to present the President's Award to Judge Lisa Van Amberg. She can't hear your applause, but I'm sure she'll feel your appreciation. It's also my honor to recognize a Missouri lawyer and scholar who for years has advanced the quality and development of the law. Professor Doug Abrams has been at the University of Missouri for more than 30 years. He's written numerous books, and with his royalties from those books, created the Happiness for Health program, which is a permanent endowment that provides toys and parties for sick and injured kids at MU Children's Hospital. Outside of his teaching, he served the profession in many ways, including as a member of the Supreme Court's Commission on Racial and Ethnic Fairness, a fellow of the Bar Foundation, and on many other professional boards. Professor Abrams has been a friend of our bar for 30 years, serving on a special committee that advises the Board of Governors on issues relating to lawyers' First Amendment speech rights, authoring his column, Writing It Right, which has aided many lawyers in writing better briefs, and of special note, serving as chair of the editorial board of the Journal of the Missouri Bar for nearly 25 years. It's my privilege, on behalf of the Missouri Bar, to present Professor Doug Abrams with the President's Award. Thank you for your service.
Congratulations, Judge Van Amberg and Professor Abrams.
Tom has been president during a time unlike any other in the bar's history. Bar presidents like to say that sometimes they get to pick the issues they focus on during their year, and sometimes the issues pick them. But more unpredictable issues have picked Tom during his term than any other Missouri Bar president I know.
Under Tom's leadership, the Missouri Bar hired a new executive director, adapted and responded to the pandemic's effects on our practices, began new diversity and inclusion efforts, and expanded wellness resources for attorneys. And that's just some of it.
To share more about the challenges and successes of this bar year and to say farewell as president, here's Tom.
It'd be an understatement to say this has been an interesting year for all of us. Our country continues to face challenges, but we've faced challenges before. We've always come through them stronger. Your Missouri Bar has likewise had a challenging year, but I truly believe we are the stronger for it. Our year started out with the resignation of our former executive director and the need to find a new one. So I asked past President Maury Cole to chair the search committee, and he went about that process as he does everything else, thoroughly. He created a search process that was well thought out and well executed. Our search committee spent countless hours reviewing resumes, conducting interviews before we were arriving in our recommendation of Ms. Epps. Judge Ortry Smith, himself a past Missouri Bar president, sent me an email early on in the process as to the significance of this selection. He said, "You and the board will be making decisions which will chart the course of the bar over the next several decades." No pressure there. I think you'll agree that the committee's recommendation and the board's unanimous vote was spot on, and we will have the benefit of Mish's strong leadership for years to come. It's one thing to come into a new position and try to prove yourself. It's another to do so when you begin your leadership with staff working remotely. Mish has done a great job, and I know we'll continue to be proud of her hiring for years to come. So, just as we get started and get on sound footing with our new executive director, the rug was pulled out from underneath us by the pandemic. There's no playbook for this. and we had to regroup at about every level. Our first thought was to keep everyone safe while we figured it out, and our then acting executive director, Ken Hopper, did a great job in seamlessly arranging for operations to be conducted virtually to keep our staff safe. We began canceling in-person events, evaluating contractual obligations, and pivoting to use technology to solve these new issues. We knew financial operations would be impacted at the bar, and we cinched our own belts. I'm happy to report that we are leaving the difficult year in better financial condition than we began. We created a COVID-19 response task force to see how we could help our lawyers through the difficult financial times and to see how we could help the attorneys and the public get back to business as usual, or at least close to usual, as we could. We set up a resource site and we worked with the Kansas Bar to host a town hall on how to access available benefits. We heard from our members and we knew they were struggling, so we provided a free CLE series to help educate our attorneys in areas relating to the pandemic and ease the economic crunch. We heard our lawyers were under stress and how our law students were under stress, and we worked to increase everyone's access to wellness resources. We also expanded our free online virtual clinic to help Missourians impacted by the pandemic. Our task force was absolutely incredible in its work to find ways to protect you. Judge Van Amberg and Judge Welsh chaired the effort, but so many more chipped in. David Ranson was always there and always forwarding helpful information. Joan Lockwood seemed to find additional hours in the day to draft protocols, procedures, and guidelines that the courts can utilize, doing so in the midst of her own hectic trial practice. Noah Wood lent all of his experience in IT, and the Honorable Doug Thompson, Karen McCarthy, Robert Jones looked into the financial impact of the pandemic and how lawyers can address them. And there were so many others, and my apologies for not having time to recognize you all, spending countless hours out of your lives to help all of us do our jobs and do them safely during these difficult times. We all owe them our thanks. During this year, we have also felt the acute pain of social injustice. It shouldn't take the unnecessary deaths of George Floyd and others to mobilize our society to action, but we've tried to harness the momentum of these events to address problems that are long overdue for solutions. We're starting in our own backyard. Our new special committee is focusing on diversity and inclusion in the legal profession, and I hope it's just the start of their efforts going forward. We all owe our thanks to our countless volunteers who stayed in the traces to pull us forward during these times. You know, lawyers have always been problem solvers, but this year's been really challenging to address a variety of issues. We've been able to address them as a bar due to the excellent help of our Missouri bar staff, who's had to start from scratch in so many areas to help our membership and the public. I know firsthand how dedicated Misha, Kent, and the entire staff is, and they have all really been incredible in their ingenuity and caring. I also want to thank my fellow executive committee and board of governors for their hard work and support. You know, Ray Williams, our past president, could have just ridden off into the sunset, but he continued to be even more involved in helping face these new challenges. Scott Robbins, Megan Phillips, Mandy Ketchum were always there, giving good counsel and taking on the unexpected problems as they arose. In particular, my fellow officers were incredible in their dedication. John Graham from Cape Girardeau will be your new president-elect, and he's already provided great leadership to our bar. Lauren Tucker McCubbin's a new vice president candidate and will be a great addition to the officer ranks. But in particular, our bar leadership is in great hands with the new president of your bar, John Gunn. Now, his service is no real surprise, as his father, Mike Gunn, was president of the Missouri Bar in 1999. I have been fortunate to get to know John over the past few years. He leads with his heart, and his heart's always in the right place. The Missouri Bar will be enriched by his leadership. Let me also especially thank my wife and family who've had to endure many absences from home and events. My thanks also to my partners at Horn, Elbert, and Bandy for their patience and support. My load has been lifted by them, and I appreciate it so much. In closing, George W. Bush said, "He had confidence in the promise of America because he knew the character of our people." I too remain confident in the promise of our bar, as I've seen the character of so many of our great lawyers and dedicated judges in our state. It's been inspiring to me, and it's been an honor to serve as your president. Thank you, and be safe.
Thank you, Tom. You now officially have the best seat in the House, immediate past president. We appreciate your service to the bar and thank you for the efforts you've made to guide our bar through these extraordinary times and unprecedented challenges.
The Missouri Bar Board of Governors met this past Tuesday, September 15th, and elected officers for the 2020-21 bar year. As we heard from Tom, Missouri lawyers will have a great leader in John Gunn.
John is an experienced probate and estate lawyer in St. Louis. John's passion for the well-being of lawyers is sure to be a highlight of his tenure as president.
Now, let's watch the passing of the gavel and the administration of the oath of office to John Gunn by past Missouri Bar President and retired Municipal Court Judge, the Honorable Michael Gunn.
Raise your right hand, John. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the bylaws of the Missouri Bar,
and the bylaws of the Missouri Bar,
that I will faithfully perform the duties of President of the Missouri Bar
that I will faithfully perform the duties of President of the Missouri Bar
to the best of my skills and ability,
to the best of my skills and ability,
by promoting service to the Missouri people,
by promoting service to the Missouri people,
enhancement of the legal profession,
enhancement of the legal profession,
and improvement of the administration of justice.
and improvement of the administration of justice.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Here's to you, John.
Congratulations, John.
An odd way to first address you all as president of the Missouri Bar, but we play with the cards we're dealt, I suppose. It has been a great pleasure and honor to serve as an officer of the Missouri Bar and to be preceded and surrounded by such superb people. President Bender is certainly no exception to the focus, class, and style we have come to expect in leaders of the Missouri Bar, and I can only hope to live up to those standards. Thank you, Tom, for being a friend and for the enormous amount of time you committed to our bar and profession in your time as a bar leader, and especially this past year as president. We are truly lucky to have you.
Well, thank you very much. That's very kind.
Thank you, Tom. When I made the decision to run for vice president of the Missouri Bar a few years ago, I did so with a decent understanding that one issue or another would present an obstacle to whatever I hope to accomplish as president. A past president of our bar advised that I be agile in preparations for my year as president, so that adjustments could be made. As my law partner, mentor, friend, and father, I'm getting a little tired of acknowledging how right he was. The world is simply a different place than it was 2 summers ago. COVID-19 has certainly changed the trajectory of all of our lives. Race relation issues in our country have reclaimed the attention they deserve. And political division is about as severe as has been experienced in my lifetime. The Missouri Bar has adjusted and responded wonderfully, in my view, with the creation of a COVID-19 response task force, the convening of our special committee on lawyers of color and our continued efforts to better the lives of our members through a focus on wellness. These are all efforts President Bender instituted and managed mindfully, for which we should all be grateful. Tom, again, thank you. These endeavors will continue. The COVID-19 Response Task Force, made up of prominent members of our bar and bench, who have magnanimously given enormous swaths of their time, will continue to provide research, insight, and tools to assist us all in navigating the pandemic. While largely unseen, the work of this task force is indispensable to the continued administration of justice by our courts until our judiciary can fully and safely resume in-person operations. Our Special Committee on Lawyers of Color is consistent with our shared hope that we do see color and appreciate and embrace our differences. We owe it to our profession and society to understand unique circumstances and experiences so that we can all do better and be better. As lawyers, we are trained to anticipate arguments so that we might better articulate a response. This is the opposite of empathy. While this tendency is often helpful to us professionally, it is of little use outside an adversarial context. Part of the charge of this special committee is to shift our emphasis to listening. It is important that each constituency, an individual member of our bar, has an opportunity to be heard. The Missouri Bar is listening and will continue to seek out the active participation of members who might otherwise be less inclined to be involved. Before he was elected President of the United States, John Adams got it right when he embraced his duty to the law and defended British soldiers following the Boston Massacre. He accepted the ridicule and disdain that often comes with doing the right thing and defending those who are without the wherewithal to defend themselves. The right thing in this regard was incorporated into the very fabric of our republic in the form of the Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution, guaranteeing the assistance of counsel in criminal matters. In the case of Strickland versus Washington, Justice Sandra Day O'Connor delivered the majority opinion of the United States Supreme Court, clarifying that the assistance of counsel guaranteed by the Sixth Amendment must be effective. It has been consistently reported that the Missouri public defender system ranks second to last, 49th out of the 50 states, with respect to funding deficiencies. Lawyers who have dedicated their lives to fulfilling the promise made by the framers in the Sixth Amendment are being called before the Supreme Court of Missouri on ethics charges because they simply cannot keep up with the volume of work. Something must change. The Missouri State Public Defender System has for years now been accepting the assistance of outside counsel to help with the volume of cases assigned to it. We will be highlighting those efforts, and the board will be hearing consistently from the state public defender and other stakeholders within the criminal justice system, with the hope that we might continue to protect the efficacy of all citizens' rights to counsel, as well as the lawyers who have committed their careers to the same. The legal profession is not well, and may not ever have been. A study commissioned by the Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation and the American Bar Association found that lawyers are 3 times more likely to experience anxiety and depression, and 2 times more likely to be hazardous consumers of alcohol than the general public. Our heads have been in the sand for too long. It is the very nature of the practice of law that we are uniquely exposed to difficult situations. As humans, we absorb the emotions experienced by our clients, but our duty of confidentiality restricts us from discussing difficult professional experiences with those with whom we are closest. Our duties isolate us, leaving us largely to work through difficult circumstances on our own. It's tough to overstate the importance of an increase on the focus of wellness of lawyers. We are suffering, and all too frequently dying, due in a significant degree to a culture where happiness and fulfillment are defined by conventional notions of success. The Missouri Lawyers Assistance Program is always available to provide free and confidential assistance to lawyers in need, but we want to do more. More than one time, I picked up the phone to call MOLAP, but I never dialed. If I had, I do believe, I would have removed alcohol from my life earlier, would have sought out therapy sooner, and would have been appropriately medicated at a time that would have earlier propelled me toward the fulfillment and happiness I now enjoy. As lawyers, we are not trained to be empathetic, It just hasn't been considered an element of good lawyering. But it is an absolute necessity to being a good person, which must come first. It is not enough that we simply broaden the discussion around lawyer well-being. It's time to do the work. Supreme Court of Missouri Chief Justice George Draper and I are putting together a group of stakeholders in the legal community for a roundtable discussion of the issues impacting the well-being of those in our community, and to consider how those issues might be remedied. The roundtable will inform the creation and charge of a Missouri Bar Task Force, which will further identify where help can be provided and develop programs to address the identified need. This is a big undertaking and may require the undoing of decades of culture. Our world is changing, and that may be an understatement. Change can be tough. We must be available for each other in ways that may not feel normal. Doing so enables us to better serve our clients and society. I'm energized to be assuming the role of president at this time in history, but I will certainly need the help of every member of our bar to accomplish these goals. Thank you for listening. Be good to each other. And let us all be willing to put in the work, not only to improve the lives of our clients and communities, but to improve ourselves and the support of one another. Thank you.
Congratulations, John. We appreciate your candor and your efforts to reduce the stigma associated with asking for help, especially among lawyers. Without a doubt, you will do your predecessors proud in the effort you give and the results you'll bring to the table on behalf of all Missouri lawyers and the public we serve.
At this time, it is our pleasure to present our keynote address by Chief Justice George W. Draper III of the Supreme Court of Missouri. Chief Justice Draper was appointed to the Supreme Court in 2011 and has served as a judge since 1994, serving at all levels of our judiciary. He began a 2-year term as Chief Justice in July 2019 and is passionate about extinguishing bias and disparity in the law. And I have to add, he is a fine graduate of Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, which is my alma mater.
All right, Mr. Cutler. We're going to give you now the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Missouri, the Honorable George W. Draper III. Also my Morehouse brother, too.
Good afternoon. Last night, I had the strangest dream. There was this worldwide pandemic. Everyone was terrified they were going to die. Experts couldn't decide what we should do. Wear a mask, maybe a gas mask, maybe one made from a t-shirt. Don't see anyone. Hoard toilet paper. Move to the country. And all the while, Aretha Franklin kept singing Who's Zooming Who? Over and over and over. Then there were wildfires and hurricanes and murder hornets. Wait, what? Then it got worse. I got stuck on a never-ending conference calls with my colleagues. Our oral arguments were virtual. Attorneys and judges kept getting stuck on mute. And there was horrible feedback. And everyone expected me to fix these technological problems. But if you know anything about me, this should cause you nightmares. Plus, everyone I knew was stuck at home, trying to work by video conference while simultaneously helping their kids with online learning and cooking all their own food. And Judge Mary Russell, dressed as Lady Justice, kept trying to give me a huge birthday cake with 200 candles. There were no coins and no Clorox wipes, and alcohol became what you put on your hands. People of all colors were demonstrating in the streets. We couldn't agree on what was okay to say or do, and nobody felt safe. When I awoke, I was so relieved to be free from this terrible nightmare. But then I realized it wasn't a nightmare. This is the 2020 we have all experienced in the past 6 months. While my family and I have been lucky to have experienced mostly mild chaos and minor inconveniences, things have been so much worse for so many others. To those who have lost family, friends, jobs, and have themselves suffered illness as a result of COVID-19, let me offer my sincerest condolences. This devastating pandemic is enormous and unprecedented. To human life and tranquility, it is profane. Even for those of us who have not yet been touched personally by this catastrophic disease, the societal changes it has wrought mean our lives are not the same. But as with all obstacles in life, necessity, ingenuity, and intestinal fortitude bolster the human character to ensure our survival. Missouri courts also had to find ways to adjust and innovate in an incredibly short period of time. Many of us were pushed abruptly into a virtual world, trying to balance work and school while staying at home. By mid-March, national and state emergencies were declared, and your Supreme Court of Missouri issued its first order addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. The order and every set of operational directives issued since made one vital principle clear: the courts of the state of Missouri shall remain open. While we need consistency in the statewide judiciary, not all of our communities have had the same impacts. So my colleagues and I have tried to strike an appropriate balance between empowering local courts to conduct necessary business and protecting the health and welfare of litigants, witnesses, victims, jurors, attorneys, judicial employees, and all others involved in court proceedings. So in-person appearances may have been suspended. Depositions and mediations may have been done remotely. But no matter the capacity in which you interact with our court system, the local courts have remained available. We also extended our orders to other aspects of our profession, making emergency modifications to rules affecting court reporters, attorneys, and those hoping to become attorneys, as well as procedures for administering oaths and conducting disciplinary proceedings. Our orders and directives have not gone without criticism. Some think we have gone too far. Others think we have not gone far enough. But all sectors of business and government are grappling with how best to proceed as COVID-19 continues to ebb and flow throughout our communities. As Missouri Lawyers Weekly reported in early July, our appellate level courts have been deciding cases on briefs, hearing arguments remotely, and issuing opinions regularly. In fact, the number of cases decided by these courts in the first half of 2020 actually exceeded that in the prior 6-month period. Job well done. I want to take this time to thank my colleagues for their diligence and unwavering support during this crisis. While we have been unable to see one another in person, thanks to our frequent conference calls, I believe I have spent more time consulting with my colleagues about the content, form, and impact of these orders than on any other decisions we have made during my entire 9 years on this court. Another guiding principle guiding us throughout these months has been to collaborate with lawyers and trial judges to help ensure we don't pivot so quickly or so drastically we inadvertently throw our legal system into disarray. So at this time, I want to recognize the yeoman's work contributed by Missouri Bar President Mr. Tom Bender, Executive Director Ms. Misha Buford Epps, and Executive Committee members by informing us about the legal community's vision, concerns, and solutions. For example, the Bar's COVID-19 Task Force report about proposed operational directives for conducting jury proceedings was invaluable. We know it is hard to consider the needs and wants of 30,000 attorneys across a vast array of practices. To all Missouri attorneys who have offered your thoughtful suggestions through the bar or to the court, thank you. Now, there is another group that has worked tirelessly. Led by Judge David Dolan of the 33rd Judicial Circuit, the presiding judge's executive committee has met by conference call nearly every Monday to discuss, evaluate, and convey to us concerns, insights about local issues, and successes in implementing the orders and directives the Supreme Court has imposed. On one issue, they all agree. Isn't it such a great time to be a presiding judge or a Chief Justice? In some ways, Missouri's legal system was better prepared than those in other states to handle this pandemic's massive disruptions. We have spent decades building relationships between the bench and the bar, and together we have created the statewide infrastructure for lawyers to continue filing cases and to allow courts to continue considering those filings when in-person proceedings are not required. I want to acknowledge the tireless work of our state courts administrator's office, and especially its judicial technology staff, in helping to ensure our judges, clerks, and court staff had the tools they needed to move their work home when required. While many of you practitioners have become adept at conducting routine business using remote means, courts too have employed new technology. Not unlike this annual meeting, which has found its home in a virtual world, judicial committees and commissions have moved their meetings online as well. When Aretha Franklin asked who's Zooming who back in 1985, I doubt she anticipated millions of people turning to Zoom, WebEx, FaceTime, or conference calls for all their communications. But remote technology does not work for everything, such as critical proceedings taking place in our courthouses. And some matters have had to be conducted in person, such as the bar examination administered in July. I congratulate all those who took the July bar exam under the most unusual and stressful conditions. I thank the Board of Law Examiners, led by Executive Director Ms. Andrea Spillers, the volunteer proctors, and the clerk of our court, Ms. Betsy Abashan, as they all worked in full personal protective equipment to facilitate a safe experience for the lawyers-to-be. While we were concerned for everyone involved, I am happy to report, thanks to the safety measures of those giving the exam and the conscientious efforts of the examinees themselves, 0 cases of COVID-19 have been reported as a result of Missouri's summer bar exam. Similar protective measures are taking place in courthouses throughout the state. I thank all of you for your patience with the courts and with one another, for your attention to the guidelines we have in place, and for your diligence in trying to keep our legal system operating while protecting each other and your clients. Whether you practice in the criminal or civil side of our profession, I am sure you've witnessed the irreversible change and innovation this crisis precipitated. But we remain committed to continuously providing legal and court services to our communities. When this pandemic wanes, and it will eventually, a sense of normalcy will return, and I hope this profession will return to a focus on safety and inclusion. The evaluation of court security for the public, litigants, and court personnel has been put on hold, but the issue of inclusion has remained at the fore. Let me take a moment to remind you of a piece of our history. In 1775, a group of citizens gathered, demanding discipline for soldiers, who then fired into the crowd. A lawyer by the name of Adams stepped forward to represent those soldiers. And yet, a cousin of that lawyer fomented sentiment for the crowd and dubbed the incident the Boston Massacre. We moved from a colony to a nation. Among the first killed in that demonstration was a black man, Crispus Attucks, a man born to an African father and a Native American mother, and who escaped slavery to become a seaman. Nearly 200 years later, a preacher born in Georgia, working in Alabama, and speaking in Memphis the day before his death, said, somewhere I've read, the greatness of America is the right to protest for right. We in Missouri must remain mindful of our justice system's failings, from its treatment of Dred Scott and Lloyd Gaines in centuries past to more recent abuses. A new era of urgency for change in our justice system has been ushered in by the ultimate untimely death of those for whom the opportunity for justice ended on the streets. A recent poll of more than 600 judges nationwide asked whether they believe systemic racism exists in the criminal justice system. A staggering 65% responded yes. For those who accuse judges of being out of touch with their communities, surely this is evidence that they are not. They too have witnessed demonstrations, destruction, and death in cities large and small across America as part of a national movement some have compared with a call for a third Reconstruction. We have been forced to acknowledge there still is not equal treatment of African Americans and people of color in our justice system. Like it or not, the issue of race and racial disparity in our profession is undeniable. Although its full impact is yet to be seen, we need to be open and honest in our conversations to make our profession and our society more inclusive. Last year, I spoke to you of inequalities in the judicial evaluation process. This year, let me direct your attention to a Missouri Lawyers Weekly piece in late July hailing the Power 30 among certain civil attorneys, a prestigious group, but including only 4 women and 0 minorities of any ethnic or racial group. The need for diversity, inclusion, and a real understanding of racial bias that divides and threatens our communities, our industries, and our democracies is imperative. Our state constitution promises that our courts are open and accessible to all. Recent events force us to see our courts through the lens of oppressed and to ask ourselves what kind of culture we are establishing in our courts and legal community. So I am asking that we look within, take a holistic view of our entire profession, truly listen to and see one another, and find ways we can do better. That preacher I spoke of earlier also said, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Our society is on a precipice. With so many Americans crying out to be heard, demanding reforms be made so they all can be treated equally, with the respect and dignity to which they are entitled under the law, but which they have not always been given. Life is about choices, and I choose to stand before you an optimist, believing that the rallying cry of the people will be heard, that we can right wrongs of the past, that we can build a more tolerant world for those who will follow. In Missouri, our bench and bar are taking steps to build a more inclusive legal system. That work began in earnest when our fellow attorney, former Kansas City Mayor Sylvester Sly James Jr., encouraged law firms to sign a pledge to increase minority practitioners in their organizations. His work sparked a statewide effort, and now your Missouri Bar has established a special committee on lawyers of color in the profession. As the bar noted, diversity in the legal profession means equality of opportunity to practice law in a position of influence throughout society. Equality for all requires everyone to have a seat at the table and a voice in developing and administering the rules that govern our society. It is my hope for people of color to be as overrepresented in our profession as they are in our prisons. This new committee is about action. Its charge is to recommend specific actions the bar can take in the next 12 to 24 months to increase the retention, promotion, and advancement of minority lawyers in Missouri. You see, for change to be accomplished, a true shift in paradigm must occur, and action must be taken. I hope each and every attorney keeps an open mind in approaching the continuing legal education requirements of Rule 1505, mandating training about eliminating implicit bias. We have to flatten the curve of prejudice so the Department of Justice someday is not just a namesake of a division of the federal government, but a reality in which everyone in our society can believe. A culture of respect and fairness and a justice system in which all persons are truly equal under the law is a far better dream for 2021 and beyond than the nightmare 2020 has thrust upon us. Waking from a nightmare makes us thankful for what we do have. I am thankful the institution in which I serve is celebrating its 200th birthday this year. Maybe that's why I was dreaming of cake and 200 candles. From this court's pronouncement, once a slave, always a slave, to the 6 colleagues I am proud to call friends today, our entire judicial branch has made much progress over the past 200 years. I am also thankful for the 2 most important women in my life, my Judge Judy and my Chelsea Weston Draper Esquire. Having my family close has been one of the remarkably wonderful consequences of these strange and uncertain times. Lastly, as this may be the last opportunity to thank them publicly and for me to make a statement about the importance of law clerks in the judiciary, let me say there are new lawyers who were chosen to be clerks, and then there are lawyers who choose to be clerks. On the state and federal level, career law clerks have chosen commitment to clear and honest work product over compensation. They are often the reason justice does not turn as slowly as it otherwise would. Specifically, as to Mrs. Kelly Dunsford and Mrs. Misty Ramirez, who have worked with me for more than 20 years, they are highly accomplished, intelligent lawyers who are underpaid, overworked, and vastly underappreciated by too many members of our profession. Most of all, they are wonderful people who have become like extended members of my family. Thank you both for your years of service and fidelity. Finally, to all of you who have lived this strange nightmare's dream, but have stayed the course and continue to work in home offices, corporate offices, law offices, and courtrooms, thank you. To all who have faced personal adversity, but continue to assist others in theirs, thank you. And so, to all, stay healthy and well, and may you prosper in our great profession of service.
Thank you, Chief Justice Draper.
As we close, we hope you have enjoyed this portion of the 2020 virtual annual meeting. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to also take advantage of the great CLE programs featuring national experts as part of the annual meeting speaker series this week.
Until we are able to meet again in person, please stay safe, stay well, and remember these words from yet another graduate of Morehouse College, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward."
Thank you all for continuing to help us move forward as a profession and a community, to find new ways of working together to achieve our bar's core responsibilities of improving the profession, the law, and the administration of justice on behalf of all Missourians.
Stay well, friends.